Welcome to Creating Success in the Mess, where we talk about just that, creating success in the mess of this thing we call life.
We're your hosts, Corey and Whitney, a husband and wife team that does life and business together.
In this podcast, we share our struggles and funny moments as we have journeyed growing our family, our faith, and businesses.
We share inspiration, motivation, and practical tips and tricks to help you build yourself and a life you love.
We invite you to join us every week on the podcast, and we can't wait to create success in the mess together.
Welcome to today's episode where we talk about what stops us from just doing things we've never done before. I can think of many times when I find something new that I'm going to do, and I kind of have an option here, right? I'm either going to have to do research and read all about it to feel confident enough to even start doing it, or you know what? We can just pick it up and start playing immediately and figure out along the way.
This happens in so many areas of my life personally. Like, I am not a huge researcher like you. Like, you like
We're on opposite ends here.
You like to go into in-depth research, and I don't. You know, typically have the I'm not going to pick up the books and read, all these things like you do. But with that said, like, regardless, we both end up in the same place a lot of the times.
What, doing nothing?
Inaction.
Right.
Yeah.
So what causes my inaction is I feel like I have to be an expert first before I even try.
Right.
Probably because why? Because if I don't do it perfect, it's not good enough. Or like if I don't do it perfect, then people might say like, oh, what a terrible job. And I can't handle that.
Right. Or maybe it doesn't even turn out anyway. Like maybe it would fail if you didn't know how. I mean, I'm on the other end. Like, I'm not like, I know I am not going to be an expert. I know I don't know enough. Like, I didn't study for the test. So how can I take the test? I might get an F, right? Mm-hmm. And so I just don't give it a whirl because of the exact same fear you have. Fear of it not going right, fear of failure, fear of like it not being, perfect.
Yeah.
Even though we're on both ends of the spectrum here, like you spend a lot of time and energy into like researching about it, and then you don't have action. I don't spend a lot of time and energy into researching. I spend a lot of time and energy into like wishing and hoping and daydreaming and thinking about all of the things and all of the ways that I could do X, Y, and Z. And then I still end up in inaction.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I think I go into like research mode because like I feel like I have to learn all about it, know all the whys that come around with something in order to even begin doing it, because like it's almost as if I don't have the confidence to even like have a little loss. It's almost like, am I trying to guarantee myself a win before I even start doing it? Mm-hmm. Really kind of, I almost like want to be like a little child. Mm-hmm. You see them like grab a new toy and they just like start figuring it out on the go.
Yeah, like they pick up the paint and they just start putting paint and colors all over the paper, and then they just get so excited because of this picture that they made.
Right.
And for us, like as adults, we won't do that, but we did that when we were kids.
I think it's because as adults we can't handle like the frustration of like it not working.
Approval from others, right? Like a kid takes the paint and they put the paint on the paper and they're like, wow, look at this. And then 9 times out of 10, someone says, whoa, that's awesome. What is it? Tell me about it. And the kid starts telling you like exactly what it is that they made that maybe you don't see with your adult eyes on it.
Yeah, even though we can't see it, once they start saying things, you're kind of like, okay,
right,
I see.
Yeah.
And it's like, in a way, you're looking at a part of their mind because they had a vision within their mind of what they were trying to make.
Right.
It may not look like that from the outward expression.
Yeah, but here as adults, we have this idea of I need to make sure that people can see it in its perfect form, right? So that they don't have to ask me, what is it? Can you imagine if they asked me, what is it, after I spent all of this, energy and effort into like that? We get offended and insulted, by the thought of maybe what if a human being, like judges me. One of my peers can't see, doesn't know, like all of those thoughts and questions.
I think for us as adults, like, I think what you said was very true, is like we start putting together all these narratives and all these things that other people are probably going to say. And that's what, they're probably going to say that you should have done it this way. Well, if I had done that, I should have. Well, like, that's good. If you had done it, you should have done it that way.
9 times out of 10, they're not going to say. Like, they're really literally in their own little world of feeling about their own things, what somebody's going to say or what someone's going to judge them, or, sitting around daydreaming about all of these options that they could do. They really aren't probably going to spend and invest that much into this thing that we in our head have built up so much and given them so much credit for that they actually don't care about.
So then why don't we just change the narrative? Why don't we just say, hey, everyone's busy and everyone's doing their own thing. No one's going to care how well I do this. They're just going to be like, oh, wow, look at you. You did something.
Right.
Like we have a business friend of ours, and she's been in business for a long time. She's a brick and mortar, right? And she all of a sudden was like, I want to increase my online marketing game. And so she found Canva.
Right.
And she started doing Canvas. Now, we've been doing Canvas for a long time. We're like, what, semi-experts, pros.
Yeah, we teach people how to use Canva.
Right.
Yeah.
And she brought over some examples of some Canvas that she made, and we were actually extremely proud. Now, looking at it, I was like, okay, this is essentially what I produced when I started using Canva.
Right.
And
now, when she brought these, images over to show us that she had, worked on and created, she was looking for approval from us, right? Because she felt like hers, she had that pride in herself that she went out and did this, new age thing that she's never done in business before. But at the same time, she was nervous because she felt like she didn't necessarily feel like hers lived up to all of the, magical, beautiful ones that she's seen, the more elaborate ones, I guess. So she was not sure if it was a good one or not. She felt pride in it, but at the same time, she was looking from us to say, this is great, but if you add a little, whatever she was looking for, she wasn't 100% sure in her images. And they were fairly basic. They got to the point and they had a picture and they looked exactly like our initial first ones. Because
essentially they were basic because she hasn't yet played further along down into the Canva program.
Exactly.
She hasn't discovered all those elements and all those different things that you kind of added and how to move boxes and how to change shading. Yep. She hasn't discovered all those things yet because she's still playing with the basic setup.
Right. She's on step 1 and 2.
But then when she goes, so she's playing with the basic setup. First off, kudos to her because he went 110% in actually creating something, because she just could have easily said I'm not good enough, I can't compare to others, because when you look online, you see people who've been doing Canva or people who've hired people who've done their graphic design, and maybe they're even using Adobe programs, and so, because I can't use an Adobe program, but I can use Canva and I'm just happy with it, but it's, you're comparing to that and it's like, well, I'm not going to make this as good as them.
Right.
But it is kind of like, well, yeah, but you're doing something.
Right. Yeah, for me, it was like, she had that pride in herself, but then she was still, she was trying to compare and judge where she was to what she sees other people. But it's like apples and oranges. And I told her, I was like, you need to judge to their first 2 Canvas. Where are those? Yeah. Where are their first 2 Canvas? And she was like, oh my gosh, you're right. This is good enough. And so often in life, I think we go through and we judge based on where we are and where we see them at currently. Yeah. Well, where they are currently, we are looking up to, right? We're looking up to, the person that's already ahead of us. And so we can't judge our beginning with their mastery. We need to make sure that we're looking at their beginning. Where is their beginning? And oftentimes we forget that, we're not looking at that for them. So why hold ourselves to this excessive high standard? It's unrealistic and it's not fair to us. It's not fair to ourselves to do that at all. And, when they started, they weren't comparing to a mastery. They got to mastery level by like practicing, by doing, by working through it. I think in life, like we get so hung up on other people and other things and there's so many other factors that go into that. And I think if we would just focus a little bit more on us, like where we are today, what we are learning now, like, and just doing the action. Like when we first started, we were talking about how we both get stuck, not even taking action in anything. And we're coming at it from different places, but the result is the same because ultimately we're literally just not taking action in the doing part. Like I'm over here daydreaming and you're over here, researching, but we're not actually putting any, thing into play. We're not stepping on step 1 and step 2 first. We just want to, think we're going to get to 5, 6, and 7. Yeah. But it requires us to, on a stair step, you have to step on step 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. I think curiosity is an initial step. Like you have to have the curiosity to want to try to learn something new. But if your curiosity was like me, if all I do is read blogs and gather information and take notes, well, I'm not producing anything. Right. And so we want to get to the production part of things. Like we want to get to the play part of things. And so how do you bring curiosity to play?
Right. I think you're exactly right. The first step is always curiosity. That is the part of us that like
idea generation comes in that.
Shows up and starts thinking. And then, then maybe we go into the research phase or the daydream phase or, whatever. And then after we, have allotted ourselves a designated amount of time, like you can literally say, okay, we have spent 2 days now daydreaming about this or 2 days now researching this. What is my next step that I can start taking action in this? Be your own boss. Regulate yourself and say, okay, this is great and all. I know enough now that I can take a step. Where am I going to take a step? And look for the next action step and then take action. And if at that point you want to go back and look at researching or, daydreaming from there or changing something up or whatever, then allow yourself a designated amount of time to do that again. But you have to make sure that it's like in your scheduling, in your schedule of this, process, that you don't get stuck just sitting on day 1. Make yourself move on day 2. And it doesn't have to be anything magical. Like, in the case of our business friend, she literally, researched Canva and then action step for after her allotted amount of time could have been created a Canva account. And that's it. And then she could go back to watching a couple more YouTube videos on how to build Canva. Okay, now it's time for an action step. Let's try to create a graphic, you know? And I think
so what's happening is essentially she's taking some action as she's learning a step. You know what this reminds me of? Remember that, so if you ever built IKEA furniture, like you just have like all this like particle board stuff and you got to put them all together.
Right.
Well, like your first IKEA furniture, like the first thing you look for is like the piece of paper that has all those like visual steps.
Yes.
Right. So then like in step 1, you find your pieces, right? You're gathering the information that goes together and then you put it together.
Right.
And then what do? Then you go back to your manual and you're looking at step 2 and you put it together.
Yes.
Well, come on. After you've put some IKEA furniture together, after a couple times, you open that box up, you start slipping those little metal circle things in holes and you start just going at like, I don't need the instruction manual anymore. I got the setup. And I think that's what happens. Like your first piece, you're a beginner. Yeah. But you're taking action with every step of information that you're gathering.
Right. Like every one of those steps, you're essentially making a 1 or 2 degree shift in building that piece of furniture. Right. And by the end, like you don't have a bunch of pieces, you have a whole piece of furniture and you did it 1, 2 degrees at a time.
And now you can buy 2 or 3 more pieces. And you can have your whole house filled. And then you can be so good at building IKEA furniture, someone will pay you to build their IKEA furniture for them.
Exactly. And no one opens up a box of IKEA furniture with a bunch of pieces and has somebody paying them big money on their first box opening. Like, no, that doesn't happen.
No.
Like, you play with it and you see like how it is and you experience it and you get some questions answered and you get some experience under your belt. And then people are like, oh my gosh, you baked that sourdough? Like, can you bake me a piece? I'll pay you if you bake me a loaf of sourdough bread. Like, one of those sourdough bowls. Can you do that? I'll pay you $5 for that. And you're like, yeah, I mean, I do that for myself. Like, I can bake you one. Mm-hmm. That's how it goes. Nobody says, hey, could you please, like, figure out how to bake sourdough? I'm going to pay you $5 to bake me a sourdough loaf. And you've never, ever said a thing about sourdough.
That's because your customers don't care about your research. They care about your product that you produce.
Right.
So if you're not ever connecting your curiosity with your play and you're not producing something, you're not ever opening yourself up to a market.
Right. Well, I just heard this week somebody was talking about how the number one emotion that is the game changer in business and in life and just, anywhere you go. If you walk in a room with enthusiasm or you approach your leadership with enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is the emotion that is like the game changer. And so just like the sourdough baking example or the Canva example, right? She went and she played with Canva. And so when she has pride in the image that she created, the graphic that she created, enthusiasm comes. And so then people look at her enthusiasm from this graphic and they're like, oh my gosh, I need some of that Canva for my business. Can you teach me? Can you build me some graphics? And then that's how businesses are born. That's how people are attracted to your enthusiasm and your excitement about what this new thing is that you're playing in.
That's because enthusiasm is fuel.
Yes.
And fuel is energy.
Yes, and people like energy. Yes.
So essentially the key to this is if you want to take your curiosity to play, you got to have some fuel. So it comes with enthusiasm.
Right.
Which is oftentimes what was the original why you wanted to do it.
And enthusiasm comes from action, not education. Action.
Yeah.
It's when you tell somebody about it. It's when you're doing it. It's when you're sharing it. Like the enthusiasm comes out with action. So the game changer to progress in your life or your business in any capacity is taking action with enthusiasm.
So good.
That is the needlepoint mover that a lot of us get stuck behind, the veil of perfection that is never going to show up, and we don't take the action, and then we lose our enthusiasm.
Yeah. This was so good. So enthusiasm, that's the feeling, that's an emotional feeling that we need in order to move forward and take steps in action to making progress in our own personal life.
Yes.
I love this.
Yep.
So if you are sitting here listening to this and you're like, I am really wanting to do something that's next level. I want to make progress in my life. We're here for you.
And if you are needing to overcome a tech hurdle in front of you, like Canva or building a website, we host workshops and we walk alongside and mentor all the time. So don't let that be what's holding you back. Reach out to us or join one of our workshops and then get to making the progress and achieving the success that it is that your heart desires. Information on the workshop and how to get in contact with us can be found at our website, businessbuildingmentors.com, or of course, you can reach out on the social media platforms for Creating Success in the Mess, and we will be happy to help you start achieving progress. Thank you so much for listening. We know that we all get busy trying to do life, and our hope is that we can find ways to implement time and space to create a life we love living every day on our terms, right in the middle of all the messes of life.
We hope that you've been inspired and our conversation has helped you in some way, and it would be so amazing if you share this conversation with somebody that you think would really benefit from hearing it. You can text someone the link, or you can share it via email or on your social media pages. And please, we would love for you to leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening on because it helps us so much. The more reviews we have, the more people that will find our show, and our ultimate goal is for everyone to feel inspired, to find ways to create their own success right in the middle of all the mess. And no, they are not alone in doing so.
And finally, we'd love for you to join our weekly email list so that we can connect on a deeper level and you can always be in the know of our new release events and opportunities.